All right, folks, chapter 3 now of the Screwtape Letters, and more pitfalls here for this recent convert that the evil one is trying to get him to fall into. So Screwtape counsels Wormwood to help entice this man to think about his own states of mind and not so much about God. That's just meat and potatoes spiritual life. A life of prayer consisting coming into the presence of God, acquiring that habit of mind, habitual awareness of the presence of God, learning to come into God's presence is not easy. So instead, get him to focus on his own states of mind or feelings, and distract him from the presence of God. Anything to get us focused on ourselves. And keep his mind off elemental duties. This is a great insight C.S. Lewis points to here. The most obvious things, the horror of the obvious. I love this statement. The horror and neglect of the obvious. The duties of our state in life. That the sink is full of dishes. What is God's will? Walking around and being so spiritual and pious and neglecting the duties of our state in life. If we do that, we are not in the will of God. We're not in the center of God's will for our lives, no matter how pious we act or think we are. So that's interesting here. Keep his mind off the most elemental duties, that flow from his state in life. And instead, direct him to the most advanced and spiritual ones. Get the guy to become over-spiritual. Classic pitfall of a new convert. So this is just another form of self-deceit. And we think we're perfect. Walking around all pious and stuff. And saying things like, I'm a basically good person. I can't stand that. Sometimes people come into the confessional. Now, we don't want to just, think that humility is just beating the ever-living you-know-what out of ourselves and just constantly putting ourselves down and all that. It has to be real and balanced, and the truth, okay? But the truth is we are deeply wounded, okay? We got to learn to laugh at ourselves. But to just constantly heap negativity on ourselves, too, can be a form of pride and self-centeredness and excess. There can be an excess there that's left the path of wisdom that is no longer genuine humility. So we got to catch ourselves in the act of thinking, folks. Think of it like Wild West, Jesse James, and a train robbery. You got to come alongside that train. You got a train of thought going through your mind. Well, you got to gallop down the tracks, catch up to that train, jump on the caboose, work your way, pull out your Colt 45, push your way all the way up to the engine, and then you point the gun at the conductor and you say, "Stop this thing." All right? And then you tell them to open the safe. All right. And we see what's going on inside our, I was getting way too carried away with that analogy, sorry. We got to stop ourselves in the middle of thinking. And stop the train. All right. Now, and then analyze those thoughts with the Lord. We might get a chuckle out of it. I think that's a good sign. If we can stand there with the Lord, we might look at him and see he's chuckling too. At our folly of different things that go through our brain. So we got to learn to do this. We're really a sick person. So you just think of it like a person who's paralyzed from the waist down. They have to be careful. I know somebody that this just happened to a couple years ago, and they have to live this way now. They can't feel anything from the waist down, so they got to be careful because they can hurt themselves and not even know it. All right, so that can happen to us. We have to be checking all the time. What's going on? Am I hurting myself? I have any cuts or abrasions? Because we may not feel it. We lack that sensitivity. We're kind of blind to so many things that we have to treat ourselves like a disabled person. I mean, that's basically it. And form that habit. So anyway, now I love this. There's so much good stuff in this chapter here. And this lots of subtlety here. He's really got the scalpel out on us. Ouch. Yeah, praying for his mom. You know, the sharp-tongued woman at the breakfast table. Sharp-tongued old lady at the breakfast table. You know, he's praying for an imaginary person. Pray for her soul. All the saccharine, hyper-pious spirituality. Okay, pray for her soul. And I'm so spiritual. I'm praying for her soul. Meantime, you know, you're praying for her soul, but you're praying that she would, you know, learn to overcome these sins in her life. But what the devil here, C.S. Lewis, shows us is sometimes what we think is sin is really things that happen to annoy us, you know, or make us uncomfortable. If they're irritating to us, they must be sins. So then in our prayer, you know, we're rubbing the wounds of the day and making them more and more raw. That's an interesting insight there. Yeah, so we can become so blind that he says, you know, you can be praying for your wife or your husband, you know, this impassioned prayer for them, and then shortly after that, next minute, you're insulting them or abusing them in some way. Yeah. All right, so we got to bear with one another. Everybody's annoying. We're annoying too. We might have to listen. I forget if C.S. Lewis said that or somebody else. Benedict Gershel, Peter Kreeft. I think it was C.S. Lewis somewhere. Maybe it was. I don't know. Somebody said, you know, we're going to hear tapes of ourselves in purgatory. That's what purgatory is going to be. You know, we have to put up with ourselves and all our irritating habits, annoying idiosyncrasies, and listen to tapes of ourselves. I'll have to listen to these videos maybe. I don't know. All right, now, here's an interesting insight. Projecting the worst possible motivations on everybody else, but excusing ourselves. You know, blindness to, you know, our own deeper intentions, you know, in that remark. But then impugning the worst possible motives for anything anybody else says. Interpreting it in the worst possible manner. Projecting these intentions upon them. That's a double standard. So that's exactly what C.S. Lewis calls us out. And we get into this annoying household tit-for-tat business amongst our friends. And, you know, then they hurt us and we're like, I can't believe that. I did not deserve that. I'm totally innocent. Are we ever truly totally innocent? Suppose sometimes. But most times we did something in the past to set ourselves up for being hurt. Okay, rewind the tape and look. Somewhere back there, we said something, didn't say something, didn't do something, whatever. Some sin of omission or commission or slight or insult or, you know, lack of thoughtfulness, something downrange in the past might have brought this about, might have affected that person to treat us in that way that we felt was so undeserved. And yeah, I'm not, you know, we're not excusing that person for exacting this vindication, retaliation or whatever, but at the same time, this just goes back and forth in daily life, and we gotta stop pointing the finger at everybody else. And remember the old saying, whenever you point the finger at somebody, can't forget that there's three more pointing back at us. All right. Is she jealous of her son's new faith? And then he points out the jealousy of the elder brother. You know, man, he's getting off way too easy here. Suddenly he's gonna become Padre Pio overnight or some dang thing. All right. Yeah. That's so typical. So Glubos, the demon who's in charge of tempting his mother, you know, that's very interesting. You know, the idea of resentment. When somebody does something to try to improve their life, we become jealous and even resentful. So our neighbor, you know, they start painting their porch. You know, we're sitting over on our porch and we start resenting them. resenting them for who do they think they are, trying to upstage everybody in the neighborhood, painting their porch or painting their house or something, and fixing up and improving their house. Here they are trying to make their house look better, and we start resenting them. That's just typical human behavior. So anyway, it's a great chapter. Hope you enjoy it. Until next time, God bless you.